Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Gopiyana Vallabha Givaradari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Givaradari Yasodanandana Bhajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Bhajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tera Vanachari Yamuna Tera Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari So we'll be reading this morning from the Srimad Bhagavatam, third canto, chapter 28, text 18. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Cheva Narottanam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jamudirayat Nastabesya Bhattesa Nityam Bhagavata Sevayam Bhagavate Uttamasloke Bhaktir Bhavate Naistike. So, we'll try to read it. Okay. Kirtanya Tirthaya Sasam Punya Sloka Yasaskam Dhyayat Videvam Samaham Gam Yavam Nasyavate Manaha Kirtanya Tirthaya Sasam Punya Sloka Yasaskam Tayat Devam Samaham Gam Yavanasyavate Mana Kirtanya Tirthaya Sasam Punya Sloka Yasaskam Dhyayate Sham Samagamam Yavana Syavate Mana. Kirtanya Tirtaya Sasam Punya Slokaya Saskam Jayadevam Samagangam Yavana Syavate Manaha. Kirtaya Tirtaya Sasam Punya Slokaya Saskaram Daya Devam Samagangam Yavana Syavate Manaha. Kirtanya Tirtaya Sasam Punya Slokaya Saskam Daya Devam Samagangam Yavana Syavate Manaha. Kirtanya Tirtaya Sasam Punya Slokaya Saskam Daya Devam Samagangam Yavana Syavate Manaha. Mataji's please. Kirtanya Tirtaya Sasam Punya Slokaya Saskam Daya Devam Samagangam Yavana Syavate Manaha. Kirtanya, word singing. Tirtaya Sasam, the glories of the Lord. Punya Sloka, of the devotees. Yasaskaram, enhancing the glory. Dhyayet, one should meditate. Devam, upon the Lord. Samaham, all the limbs. Yavat, as much as. Na, not. Syavate, deviates. Manaha, the mind. Translation and purport by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki. The glory of the Lord is always worth singing, for the glories enhance the glories of his devotees. One should therefore meditate upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead and upon his devotees. One should meditate on the eternal form of the Lord until the mind becomes fixed. Please repeat. The glory of the Lord is always worth singing. For the glories enhance, for his glories enhance the glories of his devotees. One should therefore meditate upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead and upon his devotees. One should meditate on the internal form of the Lord until the mind becomes fixed. Purport. One has to fix his mind on the Supreme Personality of Godhead constantly. When one is accustomed to thinking of one of the innumerable forms of the Lord, Krishna, Vishnu, Ram, Narayan, etc., etc., he has reached the perfection of yoga. This is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita. A person who has developed pure love for the Lord and whose eyes are smeared smeared with the ointment of transcendental loving exchange, always sees within his heart the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The devotees especially see the Lord in the beautiful blackish form of Shyama Sundar. That is the perfection of yoga. This yoga system should be continued until the mind does not vacillate for a moment. Om Tat Vishnu Param Padam Sada Pashanti Suraya. The form of Vishnu is the highest individuality and is always visible to the sages and saintly persons. The same purpose is served when a devotee worships the form of the Lord in the temple. There is no difference between devotional service in the temple and meditation on the form of the Lord, since the form of the Lord is the same whether he appears within his mind or in some concrete element. There are 8 kinds of forms recommended for the devotees to see. The form may be made out of sand, clay, wood, or stone. They may be contemplated within the mind made of jewels, metal, or painted colors, but all the forms are of the same value. It is not that one who meditates on the form within the mind sees different from one who worships the form in the temple. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is absolute, and therefore there is no difference between the two. The impersonalist who desire to disregard the eternal form of the Lord imagines some round figure. They especially prefer the Omkar, which also has form. In Bhagavad Gita it is stated that Omkar is the letter form of the Lord. Similarly, there are statue forms and painting forms of the Lord. Another significant word in this verse is Punya Sloka Yaraskaram. The devotee is called Punya Sloka, one who becomes purified by chanting the holy name of the Lord. So one can become purified simply by chanting the holy name of a devotee. The pure devotee of the Lord and the Lord himself are non-different. It is sometimes feasible to chant the name of a holy devotee. That is a very sanctified process. Lord Chaitanya was once chanting the holy names of the gopis when his students criticized him. Why are you chanting the names of the gopis? Why not Krishna? Lord Chaitanya was irritated by the criticism, and so there was some misunderstanding between him and his students. He wanted to chastise them for desiring to instruct him on the transcendental process of chanting. The beauty of the Lord is that the devotees who are connected with his activities are glorified. Arjuna, Prahlad, Janak Maharaj, Bali Maharaj, and many other devotees were not even in the renounced order of life but were householders. Some of them, such as Prahlad Maharaj and Bali Maharaj, were born of demoniac families. Prahlad Maharaj's father was a demon and Bali Maharaj was a grandson of Prahlad Maharaj, but still they have become famous because of their association with the Lord. Anyone who is eternally associated with the Lord is glorified with the Lord. The conclusion is that a perfect yogi should always be accustomed to seeing the form of the Lord, and unless the mind is fixed in that way, we should continue practicing yoga. So continue until your mind is fixed on the form of the Lord. Omayana Timandasya Chanansala Shanakya Shaksuranmitam Yena Tasmai Shigurave Namah Chitchaitanyamanopistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupakadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shiyu Shiyuda Padakamanam Shigum Vaishnavam Sa Shri Rupam Jagajatam Saganaragnatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parjanasaitam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Saganalita Shivishakam Vitam Sha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandha Jayatpate Gopesha Gopra Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhani Sutta Devi Pranamama Hari Priye Vakha Kalpta Visha Kripa Sindhu Visha Patnam Pavanabhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namo Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani. Namaste Saraswata Devi Gauravani Pacharani Nirvashesa Srinyavadi Paskachaya Desatarine. Srila Prabhupada Ki. So in the purport of this verse, Srila Prabhupada quotes this verse from, it's mentioned in the Svetasvatara Upanishad, but also in the Rig Veda. This Tat Vishnu Parampadam Yasada Pashanti Suryayo. The pujaris who go on the altar, they usually sing this mantra before to fix their mind on Krishna. Because the form of the Supreme Lord is the highest individuality. And this verse said, it's always visible to the sages and the saintly persons, this form. That so someone asked Prabhupada, I don't remember the exact context, but how can we see Krishna? And Prabhupada said, if you step a little aside, then I can see Krishna, then I can see the deity. So the deity, seeing the deity, or meditating on Krishna in your mind, the same. And that's what Prabhupada explains in the purport. That so there is no difference between devotional service in the temple and meditation on the form of the Lord. That it is not that one who meditates on the form within the mind sees differently from one who worships the form in the temple. No. And then Prabhupada explains there are different forms in which Krishna's deity can be made. And there are statue forms and there are painting forms of the Lord. We had that painting there a few days ago about Lord Ram, that all Prabhupada calls them windows to the spiritual world. As these forms are non-different from Krishna. And then the next point Srila Prabhupada discusses in the purport is, as one becomes purified by chanting the holy name of the Lord, so one can become purified by chanting the name of a pure devotee. And that's interesting. The example is given of Lord Chaitanya, who was chanting the names of the gopis, and his students, some of his students criticized him. And then after that, Lord Chaitanya decided to take sannyas. Because then he was thinking then they will not make these offenses because they respect the sannyas more. They give respect to sannyas, So why are devotees glorified as the Lord is glorified? Because devotees are on the same transcendental level as the Supreme Lord. Does not mean they are equal. Srila Prabhupada gives the example, if to become the servant of the king, yes, you must live in the palace, and you get the same opulence as the king. Yes, but you are serving. That if we are connected with the Lord's activities, then we are also glorified. We have Srila Prabhupada spreading the whole name all over the world, and for that he will be glorified for so many centuries to come. That we hear of Prahlad Maharaj, that happens a few million years ago. Still is glorified everywhere, Prahlad Maharaj. That, yeah. So anyone who is eternally associated with the Lord is glorified with the Lord. So the conclusion is, a perfect yogi should always be accustomed of seeing the Lord, and unless the mind is fixed in that way, it should continue to practice yoga. So yoga is meant to fix Krishna in the mind and think of him constantly. And unless that is becoming natural, one has to perform sadhana, fix the mind on Krishna by different forms of devotional service. Because if one becomes pure, then Om Tat Vishnu Parampanam Sada Pasanti Suryo. That these sages, they look always towards the lotus feet of the Lord. That when shall I reach there? They are not missing the goal. They are fixed on the goal. That they know the goal, but they have to reach the goal yet. But they are fixed on getting to the goal. So first, in devotional service, we must be fixed in knowing the goal. It's called Parama Nishta, fixed in the goal. Of course, Prahlad Maharaj said to his father, Natevitus Vatratumi Vishnum Darasi Bhairartamani Atayanta Deopanima Stepistantam Udam Nibada. Natevitus Vatratumi Vishnum. These blind leaders, they don't know the goal of life. So first that we have to fix what's the goal of our life. Go in New York on the street and you ask people, what's the goal of your life? What kind of answers will you give? To enjoy life. You live only once. Enjoy life. How do they know that they live only once? Can they prove that? No, they can't. It's speculation. And life is meant for enjoyment. Anandamaya Vyasat. That's also in the Vedas. It's for enjoyment. But it's for spiritual enjoyment. Ananda. It's for enjoyment. The higher enjoyment. The blissful enjoyment. Not the enjoyment of the material body. That's no enjoyment. That's absence of misery, that's all. It's very short. So, Parama Nishta. Natevitus Vatratimi Vishnum Darasi Yebair Artamani. Because they are absorbed in the material energy, in the temporary world of attachment and aversion and so-called relationships, which are very temporary in this world. We had so many relationships. If you get older, more 60, 70 years old, then you see, yes, I've got so many relationships in my life. They all finished. It's nothing worth. It's all temporary. That now here, tomorrow somewhere else. That so yes. Duratie bij achtermate. Ja, tired na der nemen als de beest and tremor. And a blind man is guiding another blind man, and they fall together in a ditch. So that's what's happening in this world. So many political leaders, and you follow them, good luck. That's where you go, you fall in the ditch. No clear goal of life anymore. They are blind, not te vitus vertimusnum. But they are, yeah. Sata pasanti Suryo, or Suraya, or Deva. They are simply worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's the Suraya. Simply worshipping the Supreme Person. That's their goal. They are fixed in that goal. And the Asuras, no interest in worship of Vishnu. When Ravan met Narada Muni said to Ravan, you should give back Sita to Ram, or it will not do good for you. And immediately, Ravan became angry, and he took his sword. And with his sword he was going to cut Narada Muni's body in pieces. And he tried to, with his sword, but his sword went through the transcendental body of Narada Muni. And Narada Muni was still dancing in the air and chanting Krishna's names. And Ravan said, what kind of body do you have? Oh, Narada Muni said, this is a spiritual body. And Ravan said, can I also get such a body? And Narada Muni said, yes. You just have to perform devotional service to Lord Vishnu. And Ravan said, impossible. So they are not interested. So the yogi described here is fixed on Paramatma in the heart, the super self. Srila Prabhupada says, yeah, loving yourself is indirectly loving the super self. Loving yourself is indirectly loving the super soul. How can we understand that? Because the self or the soul is a part and parcel of the super soul, of the super self. We are a part and parcel. So in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna speaks about so many deviations from this paramanishta of seeing Lord Vishnu as the goal. He speaks about those who think worshipping the demigods is the goal of life. Anya devata. Worshippers of other devas, they have lost their senses, their intelligence. So that is essential to the Vedas. And the Vedas are summarized in the Vedanta Sutras, or the Brahma Sutras. And the Vedanta has 4 books. The first book is about Sambandha Gyan, the second and the third about Abhideya Gyan, and the third book is about that Prayojan, the goal. So one must know the goal, otherwise there is no Sambandha. You must know that Krishna is the goal, and that we are his servants, subordinate, and that the connection, our relationship is devotional service, and a relationship of love. If you don't know these 3 things, you cannot be fixed in the goal. Therefore, this is all explained in Bhagavad Gita. That in Bhagavad Gita says, Vedasa sarvam amiva vedya. I'm to be known by the Vedas. That Krishna Janma Kamas Medium, Yome Veti Tattva, Tyaktvam Punachama, Naitamamisern. When you know me, and you know my activities, and of course, when you know Krishna is in activities, you know your activities are different. and we come to understand we are not Krishna. We have a relationship with Krishna. So that must first be established. And that is what the Bhagavatam does. It explains who Krishna is, and explains by glorifying so many devotees what our relationship with Krishna is. And by the stories of these devotees, we understand also our relationship with Krishna. How we are a part and parcel of Krishna. So that goal is important. So every religion that has this goal of developing love for God, Prabhupada says, is a bona fide religion. But they must recognize the existence of God and our relationship with Him and devotional service. That when Srila Prabhupada went to Australia, he gave a lecture in a monastery of the Franciscaner monks. And he told them, you are also Vaishnavas, because they are accepting a Supreme Lord. And you are also developing love of God. And so Prabhupada was in a debate here in America, was broadcast all over America, and then he said yes. The interviewer was asking Prabhupada, this person here is a Christian priest. A Christian priest, and he believes in the Bible and Jesus Christ. According to you, can he attain perfection? And Prabhupada's reply was, if his religion allows him to develop the perfection of developing love of God, yes, then he can attain perfection. And then, of course, the interviewer went to the Christian priest and said, this is A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. He's a Hindu. He believes in the tenets of the Bhagavad Gita. According to you, can he attain perfection? And the priest said, no. Only through Jesus Christ can he attain perfection. But no, this principle is explained here. If one is paramanista, fixed on the goal, then he can develop this love of God. But this This Paramanishta is important. That therefore, the Bhagavatam starts with establishing the goal. Shanmadhyasya yatam vyatitartasya desabhihyasva tena brahmaridaya adako kavaye. That this, in the first verse, Sutta Goswami, or Vyasadeva, I don't know, he establishes the absolute truth. And that is Krishna. And that's the goal. And that's confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Vedasa Savra Ami Vavedya. I am to be known by the Vedas. And the origin of Vishnu is Krishna. And that, so this comes from, this verse comes from the Rig Veda, which Prabhupada quotes here in the purport, 1, 2, 22, 20. And the complete verse is Tat Vishnu Paranam Padam Sada Pashanti Surayo Diviva Shakshur Atatam Vishnu Yat Param Padam. The lotus feet of Lord Vishnu are the supreme objective of all the demigods. Those lotus feet of the Lord are as enlightening as the sun is in the sky. That, so we see us that, but of course we see that when Lord Chaitanya took sannyas, he took sannyas, I think, from Keshava Bharati, who was a so-called Mayavadi sannyas. And he got the Ekadanda. That's interesting. But then, we know Lord Chaitanya, the 3 days after receiving sannyas, he was in ecstasy. He wanted to go to Vrindavan, and he was walking to Radhadesh. That's an area where the Ganges does not flow there. And he was so in ecstasy, he was not knowing where he was going, so-called. But during that time, he was chanting a verse. And that is the Paramanishta verse. It's the verse, is also called the Sannyas mantra. Interesting verse. It's the guideline for those who want to take sannyas. Itam sastaya pratmanistam atyasitam purvatamer maharshibi aham tarishamitrantaparam tamo mukundangrini seva shevat. This is the song of the Avanti Brahman. The Avanti Brahman. It says, I shall cross over the insurmountable ocean of nations by being firmly fixed in the service of the lotus feet of Krishna. By being firmly fixed in the lotus feet of in the service of the lotus feet of Krishna. How is that called in Sanskrit? Being firmly fixed in the service of the lotus feet of Krishna. It's Paramanishta. Paramanishta. That's the goal, that's what we are speaking about. Paramanishta. This is approved by the previous acharyas who were fixed in firm devotion to the Lord Paramatma, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That in the purport, Srila Prabhupada, because Lord Chaitanya was chanting this verse during these 3 days. This is the verse from the Vaishnava sannyasis. So he did not take impersonalist sannyas. No. The personalist sannyasis, they have one danda, eka danda. But in this danda are 4 sticks. This is the Vaishnava danda. 3 sticks and a 4th one. A little stick. And these three sticks, bamboo sticks, what does that mean? Why does a sannyasi carry that? Someone knows? BMW, body, mind and words. I should always use the body, mind and words. It reminds sannyasi, I'm situated in this paramanishta. I must always use my body, mind and words in the service of Krishna. And there is that little thing, it represents the jiva. That's us. We must always be engaged in my body, mind and words in the service of Krishna. And that is not only for those who externally take sannyas, but for everyone. Everyone must be learned to be fixed in this paramanishta by serving his body, mind and words always in the service of Krishna. Prabhupada's purport of Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, text 6, which is this verse, etam sastaya pratmastam adhyastam purvater adhyastam purvatamer marshibi amtarisam drantapam tamam kunanyani shiva shivat. This is a verse we find in the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Chapter 23 is called the Song of the Avanti Brahman, and there is text 57. This is this sannyas mantra. And there Prabhupada writes, the word Paramanishta means being a devotee of Lord Krishna. Paramatma, the Supreme Person, is Krishna. Ishvara Paramakrishna Sakshidananda Vigraha. Those who are completely dedicated to the lotus feet of Krishna in the service are actually sannyasis. So being completely dedicated to the lotus feet of Krishna in service. Completely dedicated. Always serving Krishna. Without interruption. Then you are a sannyasi. So we must all take sannyas internally. It's not just those in the order of sannyas. Everyone has to take sannyas internally, like this, by always being engaged in the service of the Lord. Those who are completely dedicated to the lotus feet of Krishna in service are actually sannyasis. As a matter of formality, the devotee accepts the sannyas dress as previous acharyas did. So that's a question of formality. He also accepted 3 dandas. And then Prabhupada gives the history of sannyas, Tridanti sannyas. So sannyas, this Tridanti sannyas is very old. In our tradition, it's not something new. Although the 6 Goswamis, they took Babaji. Babaji is Paramamsa, to the stage higher than sannyas, the Babajis. But we are not practicing that. Prabhupada gave to 2 devotees Babaji. There was one American devotee, I forgot his name, but that's not important. But yeah, anyway, he was in Vrindavan and he got the news that he had cancer and that he would only live a few months. And he asked Prabhupada, can I remain in Vrindavan and just chant 64 rounds? And Prabhupada said, yes, just do that. And he gave him a Babaji version. Babaji. That is a Paramahamsa stage. But then a few months later, the devotee got the news that the diagnosis was wrong, and he went back to America to his girlfriend. So it didn't last very much. So Prabhupada did not give Babaji anymore after that. Yeah. But anyway, that this is explained Ekadandi Sannyas, that from the Mayavadi school, they don't understand that principle of the Tridanda, that yes, that is, sometimes we may ask, yes, there are 3 things forbidden in this age, and one of these 3 things is in Kali Yuga, which is forbidden, is taking sannyas. I was for many years secretary for the sannyas ministry. And sometimes you get questions like someone writes you, yes, it is in the Shastra that one should not take sannyas in Kali Yuga. Why are you giving sannyas in ISKCON? That, or Prabhupada at a certain moment, that's the beginning of 1977, so many sannyasis fell down. And he said that he was so angry, Prabhupada said, I will not give sannyas anymore. That they all become grihastas. And that's quoted, yeah. And then someone writes you and sent that quote of Prabhupada, and then so Prabhupada said, no sannyas anymore. Why are you still giving sannyas? That's interesting. But that requires deeper understanding. This quote of these 3 things forbidden in Kali Yuga are from the Brahma Vaivarta Purana. And they are coming from a section which is about Karma Kanda. And one must see that in that section. And you have 3 kinds of sannyas. Yes, you have karma sannyas in the Karma Kanda. Then you have the impersonal sannyas, Mayavadi sannyas, or the impersonal sannyas. And then you have the Vaishnava sannyas, 3 levels. And this verse in the Brahma Vaivarta Purana explains that in Kali Yuga, one should not take karma sannyas. Those who have no knowledge about spiritual life, only karma kanda. Like, it's not that one is all in old age and then one takes sannyas without knowledge. No, that's forbidden. Krishna gives 3 qualities in the 16th chapter of sannyasis. Abhaya sattva samsudir jnana yoga vyavastiti. 3. Abhaya, fearless. Sattva samsudir, one must be purified in heart. Sattva samsudir. Jnana yoga vyavastiti. And one must be learned in the scriptures, be able to explain the scriptures. Otherwise one should not take sannyas. And one in the karma kanda has no knowledge. And that's forbidden in Kali Yuga. Because Lord Chaitanya took sannyas. And also that Madhavendra Puri and so many other acharyas, great acharyas, also in the Sri Sampradaya, they took sannyas. And Lord Chaitanya himself was a perfect sannyasi. So that is our guideline. He took sannyas. And Prabhupada, when he was very angry, he said, no sannyas anymore. But afterwards, he still gave 3 devotees sannyas initiation. And one of them is Bhakti Charu Maharaj. So we have to be careful to see things in the context. But this Paramanishta is a very important aspect. As long as we are not fixed on the goal, we are in danger. And fixed on the goal means understanding what's the means to get the goal, and that's pure devotional service. And we will hear because these are Lord Kapila's instructions on devotional service, and the next chapter is explanation of devotional service, and there this Paramanishta will be more defined, because Lord Kapila will speak about 81 forms of devotional service performed in the modes of nature. That's devotional service contaminated with the mode of passion and ignorance. It's devotional service in which we have expectations for the Lord for our material benefit. We pray for the protection of our relatives, of our work, or all temporary things, like the Lord is our order supplier. That's in the modes. Means we have material expectations. No, Paramanishta means I'm fixed in the devotional service of the Lord 100%. I want to please the Supreme Lord without asking something in return. And it takes a while before we are fixed in this Paramanishta. When I joined this movement, after 5 years I started to understand what it is about. And then I could strive to attain this Paramanishta. But as long as the heart is impure, we are not fully fixed in this Paramanishta. Because material desires are like prayers to the super soul to facilitate our material life. And that's not a goal. That's a deviant goal. So it takes a while before we get into that Paramanishta. Therefore we must hear the Bhagavatam every morning. That's the cure. And there we get these devotees, which are who have attained pure devotional service, and they are glorified in eternity practically, together with the Lord, because they are pure in heart. So this Paramanishta, this verse is the essence of this purport that where Prabhupada quotes this that great sages, they are fixed in the goal. That when you are fixed in the goal means you feel always connected, always. Because now we are hearing the Bhagavatam, we are fixed on hearing about Krishna. But soon we will take prasad and we will start talking to each other, and talks which we are maybe not always pure about Krishna. May have some relationship in the distance, maybe. But we have to be careful. Help each other to be fixed in this Paramanishta. Because I remember a few years ago, Kadambakana Maharaj spoke to the sannyas candidates and said, the meaning, what is sannyas life? Sannyas life, he said, means living in a constant relationship with Krishna in the heart. That's sannyas life. And that is the internal aspects which we all have to attain. Constantly feeling Krishna in the heart. Whatever you do, you think first is Krishna, pleased. But because we are not so advanced, we can also think that is my spiritual master pleased with what I'm going to do? Is Prabhupada pleased with what I'm going to do? So that's the same aspects that, yes, that because the spiritual master is a representative of the super soul, that, but when you are advanced, you feel your spiritual master and the super soul in the heart at every moment. That, and your concern is always, do I follow the instructions of the spiritual master? Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna consciousness means following the dictation of the super soul within. Follow the super soul, the dictation of the super soul within. Follow the instructions of Krishna within the heart. Because we are impure, we don't feel Krishna in the heart. We don't hear his instructions. Therefore, we take shelter of sadhu, sangha, sadhu, shastra, go sadhu, shastra. That, because they tell all the same thing. That, yes, that Paramanishta is the means of attaining the goal of life, being fixed in the goal. What do I desire? Is my desire in agreement with that Paramanishta? If no, then the next question is, can I make it in line with Paramanishta? Can I use it, my own desires in the service of Krishna? And that's what we spoke 2 days ago about, the dovetailing aspect. That, but always bring it in line and become a Paramanishta devotee of the Lord. So that's what I could say on this verse. Any comments, questions?
Maybe very loud. Okay. Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you very much for the class. So, a lot of times, if we're striving for pure devotional service, we might have a glimpse of what that is, and we might make a resolution. And then somehow we never can follow through on this resolution to stay in whatever consciousness we might have broken into. So why is it that we can't remain in a consciousness, in this consciousness of pure devotional service, even when sometimes we have a glimpse of what that looks like?
Yeah. That is, if we have Bhagavad Gita, yeah, I think in Bhagavad Gita 6.1 and 3.2, there in this purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that, yes, that so one must, in the beginning, one must work in devotional service, perform service, because as long as the heart is impure, one should not take sannyas, because that will cause havoc. So in the beginning we must work and serve the Supreme Lord through the 9 forms of devotional service under the guidance of a spiritual master. Because if the heart is impure, that one may make that resolution, I want to become a pure devotee, but one is not a pure devotee unless the heart is pure. But in the 5th chapter, that there is mentions that one should use one's body, mind and words in the service of the Lord with great determination. And that will purify the heart. So there is this fixed, one must become fixed in one's determination. That means one must be determined to serve the Lord without asking something in return. So one is not a pure devotee, but one performs service which is selfless, and that will purify the heart. And that's the way to become fixed in devotional service. I give you an example. In the 70s, joining ISKCON at that time was joining the temple. And you give all your possessions away to the temple or whatever, and you join, and you went out 10, 12 hours on Harinam, distributing magazines, and that was it. That devotees were not pure in heart, but what they were doing was pure devotional service. You can do pure devotional service without being impure in heart. Iyayasya redasya karmanamana zakri nikalash abhavashyashu jivan muktasa uchate. One should use one's body, mind, words, determination, convictions in the service of the Lord, and then one is imperceptibly liberated. That means one will very soon become liberated. And when you see the history of ISKCON, especially in the 70s, this period when everyone was joining and going out, it's called the period of the Hare Krishna explosion. We spread during that time all over the world, and millions of books went out. That has purified many of them. Of course, later they started to marry, get out of the temple. Prabhupada left the planet, and then it went down. But that time was a time of acting with purity. And that we must bring in our own life. That purity of acting in Krishna consciousness, even with an impure heart. So that determination lies more, not just in making a determination, I will act as a pure devotee. We don't have that force, because we are too much contaminated. But we can make the determination to surrender to Prabhupada's mission and spread Krishna consciousness and do everything with all our faults. We do really our best for that. And that is Paramanishta. even with an impure heart. Does that help to understand this?
So the best thing to do would be to have firm determination in spreading the movement.
Yeah.
If you're one-pointed on that, that's a good place to start.
That's a good place to start, yeah. And to end also. It's the means and the end. Because when you're pure devotee, your only desire is to give this Krishna consciousness to others. Very beautiful. Good, thank you very much. Shantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.